Kabbalah for Complete Life Management. Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach, Portnaar. Introduction. My first thoughts. For several years I had the thought to develop a short and to-the-point guide, and the result lies before your eyes, the ebook Kabbalah for Life Management. So now a person who is creative and competitive has a marvelous tool to come to an optimum presentation and well-being without stress. How to combine these two? Is it possible to have the advantages of two sides in a conservative way? Because it seems logical these two would exclude each other. More competition has inevitably the consequence of stress, that is to find back in health and family life, etc. For a couple of years I didn't give interviews, neither at newspapers or whatever, but now I decided to step outside. I was involved in my studies, sitting in my attic chamber, busy with my own school of Lurian Kabbalah. But there was a strong feeling inside of me that pushed me outside to talk to he who is interesting, to speak, and to pass on the knowledge to others from the point of view of the pure Kabbalah. It has become a product of my study, a study I did and still do for many years, a time where I experienced tremendous things as well as during daytime and during nighttime, because this is the way for to learn Kabbalah, studying day and night the most secret writings. The book is a book specially for you, and with you I mean the inner being. In the real spiritual world there is no you. All my students all over the world I address with you. Even my brothers speak about the Creator as you, Ata. This book is for you to gain the best and the most out of your life. And with the right attitude, you can make use of this book in an optimum way to manage your own life, independent of others. Don't read with your intellect, but try while you're reading to make yourself free of everything what controls your life. Experience and be receptive while you are reading. May the resonance come to you, because behind the words there is the inner, which I enclosed in every word during the writing, and this resonance you may receive. How is this possible? You will see later, and then you will see how it works. It is a matter of training to make yourself receptive, and then you too can attract and pass on. Try to imagine all your knowledge, all your experiences, all your pains, all your emotions. You let them go without repression. Try to be as objective as you can during your reading. Don't read this through your filter of your belief, convictions, or meanings which you once had heard. Be as a child. Be receptive with all your senses. Open all the pores if you can. Open yourself and you will receive the most. This is all what matters. This is Kabbalah. Kabbalah is receiving. I receive and pass it on to you. The smaller you are from the inside, the more you will receive. I make myself small, more tiny than you, any of you, because this is the way I can give, and this is also the way to receive. Because if your I is still there, nothing will come to you. There will be no engraving, and therefore there will be no help. So try to make yourself free of everything, and then it will happen. It will happen to you, and you, and you. The changeable and the unchangeable. We are now living in a very dynamic time period, a very forceful time, a time of a lot of varieties. It is a very demanding and straining time for us to keep up with all the changes. And you can't say, no, not me, I do not change. You can't say, I'm an ordinary boy, I stay who I am. I'm just a farmer from the inside. All the developing changes, let me go by my door. And we aren't talking about he who is in the material world, a farmer. There is no talking about the outside. The material world, we are only speaking about the inner being. It is the outer being who says to you, it isn't necessary to develop myself in a spiritual way. Why should I? My father and my grandmother, they were ordinary people. They didn't do the inner developing. Why me? Is it possible in this time? Can one function in this demanding time, not only on the job market, but also for himself? Is it possible to structure a decent life? Decent in the way he's keeping up with what life is asking. We are a product of this world, and there's no possibility to ignore this time period. To fake if we are living still another period. In a way, it is a black or white, like it or lump it, or you come along or you stand still. But when you stay still, in a way, it means you are dead. In other words, you are living like a zombie, as being that doesn't belong to the inner. Remember, you can't withdraw yourself from the laws of reality. How does reality behave? How does a person behave from the inside? It is very important to know how things are working and who decides. Who is the boss, the reality or the human being? Is it me who has to adjust at reality? And if so, how? Do I have to give up myself, or is the adjustment within myself enough? There has to be an adjustment so your happiness and well-being stays and maybe improves, and at the same time answering all the requirements of this time. Is it possible to bring these two together? You can spend your money only one time, and with energy it is the same. As long the human being is here on earth, there is certain energy storage. We have the same storage of energy as the prehistoric man had, because the storage hasn't changed. In a way, there has been no change from the earliest beginning. I mean, the reality in itself, without the human being, is unchangeable. Every day we see the same. The sun is rising and the day passes on. Every day gives us a sunset. And at the same time, no moment is the same. And these two things we have to bring in balance within ourselves. On the one hand, we see there is absolute immobility. There is no time. On the other hand, deep inside of us, within the depth of the universe, where all the creation took place, there is no change. It is static, dynamic. Everything was, is, and will be. And on the other side, we see absolute mobility, changeability. Each moment is a moment of change. This is because there are two strengths working in the whole creation. There is the strength we experience as mercy, as love, as unchangeable, and these qualities give us the feeling we don't need anything. In a way, we don't need anything. No car, no television, nothing, to be satisfied with the world and ourselves. And all of this is coming from the universal strength we call mercy. On the other hand, we experience another strength, a second strength in the universe, the strength of severity, the strength that restricts and shifts so new borders arises. This is a dynamic side of the second strength in the universe, and it is us who are moving between these two strengths. How? There is the feeling of complete satisfaction, and with and for everything, within all its simplicity and mercy, there is the feeling of the restraining and demanding dynamic strength. Every moment is different. Each moment brings us a new flavors of life. You can't say everything is the same. It often happens, great businessmen and prominent people make contact with me. They want more out of life. For example, a great director of a company, as everything his heart desires, said to me, I'm 45, but in a way I've seen everything. In his awareness, it is if life has no surprise for him. Why? People can come to such a thought because there's no review of these two strengths. They only see the love, mercy, or only the immobility with all its negative consequences. So this way, our source, the infinite light, is without any movement, is perfect. There's no shortcoming, etc. And the human being, as a product of light, has this feeling too. It is in agreement with the qualities of his source. But this can be negative too. A person can have the blues. He feels powerless. This is once the side of the coin. This is one side of the coin. On the other side, the side we name the dynamic side. And this is the side where we see severity in this world. It can be a positive one. In a way, this too can be seen as a tool to build yourself in a dynamic way. And this side can also be negative if we use this side for our own good to get what we want, despite other people. In other words, he's doing everything to aim his goal, and these are the two existing energies. How does it work? Let me point it out in another way, a way you don't think about. I have said the storage of the energy of a human being stays as it was. It is the same energy as in the prehistoric being, exactly the same. And the reality is also exactly the same as in prehistoric being. For example, for the Neanderthal, or he who hunted the mammoth, there hasn't been a change. So what has changed? Who changed the reality? See how we're living in this time. What has changed in reality considering, let's say, the day when the German invasion took place? Nothing has changed. Objectively, reality hasn't changed. It is the reality of the person that has changed. It is man himself who had adjusted the reality for his needs. It is us who fit in the reality for our needs. In this, we have to be very conscious. Not the material world decides, marks us, but we, the human being himself, controls the world. Therefore, a person has to be very alert. He doesn't lease his heart to the material. Because when a man is free, he's the king on earth. And if he leases his heart to the material, his life will be hell. The material things are there only for to help us in the earthly living, not to become attached to it. Why? Because when we lease even a small piece of our free heart, our free intellect, to a piece of material, to something that is useless, that we become attached on it, we are making ourselves as slaves. And that is what we see nowadays. One has become a slave. Of course, not literally, as in the time when there were really slaves and masters. Of course, both were slaves. The master who had slaves was depressed just as his slave was, only in another way. What I mean is, we have become a slave of the material, and each person has to liberate himself from the inside of this material slavery. And to us, the human being is given the whole inner mechanism. In every person, we see the same mechanism, the control system as in the universe. We function precisely in the same manner as the universe. In other words, every person is made in such a way he doesn't need a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a priest, a social worker, or whatever they call themselves. The mechanism inside of us, in such a way you can function in autonomy and you can absolutely be free. So what has changed during the periods of the mammoths or during wartime? I speak about the war because this was a very strong outcome in every living person. All of us can feel it. In a way, between the period of the mammoth or the period of the war and here and now, objectively seeing, there has been no change. The storage of energy has been exactly the same as it was during the mammoth period and during the time of suppression. It is also nowadays. So what has changed? Do any of you have any idea of what has changed? In what way a person has developed himself? Let me try to explain. From the outside, there hasn't been change. Of course, we are driving now in cars and not on horses. We have good roads and marvelous infrastructure, etc. On the outside, everything has become greater. The houses are more beautiful. We have a lovely smelling soap to wash ourselves, etc. All kinds of precious and beautiful things. So what has changed? The storage of energy is exactly the same as it was during the mammoth period. What has changed is the refinement of the use of the inner energy. The cultural refinement is in a way the result of this developing. But this cultural refinement only means a polishing of the outside. Of course, this is necessarily too, but it doesn't guarantee that a person in all circumstances as a development being will behave in such a way. You only have to open your eyes and you can see this. Every being, when he comes in a certain circumstances, he takes his chances in one way or another. In a way, you can be brought up with the utmost culture and decency, and it will not save a person from his bad habits. And with all the cultural decency, we mean religion, traditions, philosophic concepts, and his convictions of human beings. Of course, these are changing too. There is a developing also, but only within the need of the person. People are changing themselves, but in what way? People are only changing according to the laws of the universe. Although we know nothing about these laws, it happens in an intuitive way. We are bringing ourselves in agreement with the goal of the creation. Or in other words, with the goal of the existence here on earth. So it is very important for every one of us, when you rise up in the morning, think of for a moment, what is the purpose of existence? And when you know the goal of existence, you know what you have to do. When you rise up in the morning, you feel all kinds of energy. You're full of energy. Only there is no structure. And only you can give direction to the energy that is with and within you. There is no person on earth that can help you. Only you yourself. It is you who have to build up an inner relation with the eternal light. What was, is, and will be in wholeness. The goal of existence of everything will be determined by the goal wherefore the human being and all other forms of nature are created, and that is that existence may become whole and perfect. Although it may look different, it is the way it is as we said above. The day when the German soldiers invaded in the Netherlands, in a way this was a good day, better than the day before, and this seems a paradox. Each moment is a moment of progression, although we can't feel this. Why? We are only thinking at ourselves. We have all kinds of prejudices, and the feeling is huge. We feel pain, etc., and this makes we can't see clearly. But every moment is a moment of progression to come to the realization of the general and the particular goal in existence. Your path of life has to be for your determination. Don't say, I'm too old. My children don't call me. I am in pain. This is a horrible time. Whatever happens, it is you who have to make the adjustment in the common progression. And within you, it is exactly the same. Each day is different. Each day is an opportunity for progression. But when someone dies, is this progress too? Yes, it is. For him, it is a marvelous progression to be buried. And in many or in some of you, there will be resistance. You have to learn, but first there has to be faith. Not the cultural faith that is only a dogma. Of course, everything is necessary, but we mean faith whereby you see the goal of the existence as well in the common as in your individual existence. Whatever happens, as well in the time when you're happy, as well in the time when you are feeling sad, connect everything with your special goal. In a way, there are no good times or bad times. What exists is, or there is no time, or there is time. We feel the no time when we connect ourselves with the strength in the universe that is within us and is named mercy. Then we feel time has stopped, there is no motion. And on the other side, we feel time when we're busy in a very dynamical way. And this can be everything, even cleaning the house, etc. You can feel in that moment everything is changing. Later the kids will be at home, you will feel yourself in a very dynamic way, then you feel time. And both are good. In this you have to have faith. And this has to be built up. I don't talk about religion or other kinds of institutions. A person needs motivation. This is the true reality. And when you keep this in mind, every day you will go forward, despite all your yes, but. Erode this expression from your vocabulary. Don't pronounce it. Why? Because with this pronunciation, you are waking up from the inside doubt. And people have been made in a simple way without doubt. When there is doubt, it only means you aren't one with your inner and with the reality that is always pure. Of course, we are walking the path to wholeness, so it is this way. We're all walking the road that leads to wholeness, and I'm talking about the true reality, not about wishful thinking. You will see every day with the right attitude, inch by inch, you will love your pain more and more. You will behave yourself the same when you have pain or when you have pleasure. It doesn't matter. Why? Because there are two strengths. Of course, we will choose for the good, the mercy, because we like it more. We always choose for the good, for the nice people around us. We are doing this because we like it, and we fly away from the surrounding that isn't nice in our feeling. That is what one is doing here on earth. Fly away from the suffering and chase the pleasure, the satisfaction. Of course, this is good too, but when you want to build up a true existence, there may be no difference in these two strengths. Suppose you feel suffering or shortness. You received a sad message. It doesn't matter. You can have a fine. You have to pay a huge amount of tax money while you thought everything was okay or whatever. Of course you will be angry and upset. In a way, everything can upset you. The thing is, these moments are special moments. Deal with it. Do what you have to do. Never become angry. Not from the inside nor from the outside. Why? You have to accept both sides. There are no good times and there are no bad times. So what is changing? We say reality doesn't change. Okay, we have nice cars, beautiful houses, a good infrastructure. Maybe we like each other, but what is changing? The outer, the use of our package of energy in a more refined way is changing. The mammoth person used rough violence. We had to use this to hunt so he could stay alive. He was in need for clothing, so he had to hunt the mammoth. This was his existence. Somewhere in a cave was waiting for him his wife and children. He had to use in a rough, violent way the energies. The energies were not rough. The use was in a rough way. The energy is still the same. There has been no changing in this energy. What has changed? The refinement of the use of the energy has changed. Let me explain it to you in this way. There's a scale of spiritual strengths, as a pyramid. Strengths are rising higher and higher, and at the top they come together in a point. The higher the energy, the more refined the energy is. The universe, the light, is structured in such a way it is one. Everything is going to the point of oneness, and this oneness we have to keep in mind. Remember, there are always two strengths in existence, mercy and severity, right and left, etc. You have to try in every situation to bring them in a dynamic way to solution, and then you will come to a higher level of wholeness. In other words, each moment of your existence is whole in your eyes, or in other words, when do you have doubt? Only when you're taking something in review, you want to do too much. You want to bring something to a solution, and you take more than the minimum unit of the solvable situation. That's why you have doubts. So what to do? When you have doubts, make it less. In other words, you have to bring your problem to a simple situation whereby you are capable to say yes or no. This is a situation you have to get for it to say yes or no. That is simple. It is the simplest condition in a situation. This can be in your office, at home, it doesn't matter. You bring it to the most elementary understanding of yes or no. And then you take a decision. And this has to be a condition wherein we see the 50-50. Not the condition of the 80% pro and 20% against. If you have for 80% yes and 20% no, you are in the situation of wishful thinking. This is not the way reality works. Let this be for you and for everyone a memory aid. Only the moments whereby the reality or a particular problem is 50-50, you have reached the moment of the truth. Now you can see how important this is. Therefore, no euphoria, because it is only in your thinking, or you want to see it that way, and that is wishful thinking. As we have said before, we can't avoid the reality, although this seems a human-like habit. We can't say, yes, I want to see everything is all roses, because that isn't the reality. The reality is 50-50. The reality is to do or not to do. Why? One is placed here on earth for to take a clear position, and one is given in every situation a free choice. To every individual person is given the free choice. What does this mean, free choice? How can a person practice his free choice? In what way? It is only possible when there is 50-50. When you can see the to do or not to do, the yes or no, the good or the bad, then you have a free choice. You won't have any doubts. It seems hard, but it isn't. It is easy. Kabbalah is simple, but you have to learn the right attitude. I have given you an example, and now we can return to the refinement of the use of the strengths that are in every person. What do we see when a person walks this road? We are only interested in the individual person because the progress of the whole lies in the progress of the individual, although it seems that whole mankind makes progress, and of course it is, but it only happens because of the individual is changing. Every person has to build up his relation with the eternal, and that he may come in a tete-a-tete relation with the eternity, and not with whatever cultural inheritance there may be, only a direct relation with eternity. Of course, every one of us has to be social, and when there is war, you have to serve your country. You may do everything for your country, your neighbor, etc., but first, there has to be your individual development. This is the goal and the meaning of existence of every person. There has to be an individual development so deep that in the deepest of yourself, you are completely independent. The goal of your life is to build up a direct relation with eternity. Therefore, when someone says to you, he belongs to a group and he identifies himself with them, he still belongs in his personal development to the mass spirit. He shows you only where he stands in his development. And this is good too, don't blame him. Never patronize someone. Every person has his own development, but the everlasting goal is the tete-a-tete relation with the eternal light, whereby every person has contact with his own root of his own soul. Every person has his unique soul. There is absolutely no relation with whatever organization he belongs, in what way he had structured his identity. It is only secondary. The primary identity has only to do with you and your spiritual root. You and your root. And from your root comes all the creative strengths. You have to have a relation with your root. This is what you have to build up. This is the tenor of the whole history, as well from the individual, as well from the whole society. Do you see what I mean? So first we saw a human being had used his energy in a rough way. He didn't know himself and was only busy with how to survive, as we have said about the mammoth, the person, etc. And we see this back also in the forms in war, for example. It is the same. We are this and we are that. There is no individual solidarity with the source of their soul. That's why they belong to an organization, group, as a mass. What we see is a refinement, and that is progression. More and more refinement. In other words, higher and higher in your soul. All what we have discussed so far is only about the inner of you. Nothing is outside a person, because outside of you there is only the eternal light. Everything is within a person, within you. The whole progression is to find within a person, within you. Therefore, you have to go inside. Make contact with your energy deeper and deeper and refine them more and more. We see symbols of this as a projection of the reality. For example, you see a car standing in front of your house. Nobody thinks about it. Sometimes there's a burglar in a car, etc., but normally cars stays outside, and we don't think about it, that someone wants to steal a wheel or a car radio. Of course, these things happen, but not as much as in the earlier days. What wasn't possible then is now possible. There is still the chance of an attack, but when we go back in history, only a few ages ago, it was normal to kill someone here in Europe. The life here in Europe was terrible. It was barbarian, and the medieval period was horrible. Why? Try to see it this way. Also, this was a projection of the human development. The outside is always a projection from how one lives from the inside. There's a saying, a nation gets his leader it deserves. When people want to be free, want to develop themselves, the politics will adjust. Although it may seem otherwise, it is so. Look at the other countries which are still in a pre-developing stage. They are in war with another country and do terrible things to each other. They also have such leaders which lead their people. The politics is there too to adjust what people want living in that particular country. Therefore, it is very important that every being, just as it is happening here in the Netherlands, people have to learn how to socialize with themselves. He has to learn how he can be an individual person. And the person in the Netherlands are ready. Take, for example, Amsterdam. Is there such a place as Amsterdam in the whole world? All housekeepings are individual, separate. It is only the outcome from the process of every individual being. And the next step is, now they have to learn to make the connection with their own root. And now we see this manifesting. Why? Not time is determined by the people already. The souls are ripe for the work at themselves, and only this brings satisfaction. Only then a person can come to his ultimate fulfillment, and in this time we are living now. The refinement of the energies lies within us. Our attention has to go that way. Did I make myself clear? There has nothing been changed considering the beings living in the mammoth period. There has been only a refinement of the energies. I use my energy on a higher level. In what way? You can compare this with crude oil. A barrel of crude oil is different from a barrel with petrol. You see a difference in price and taste and smell. Compare this with a barrel of Chanel No. 5 and compare this with the price and the satisfaction. And on the one hand, there is no change in reality. The person that lived in the mammoth period always exists. The rough energies are still intact, but they are the lower levels, as the crude oil. In a way, they're still inside of us. Look at someone when he stands still in traffic or he wants to pass a car, and another car stands in his way. Is there a difference? The wild beast rises up in him, comes to the outside, and he's too assertive. There's something I want to tell you about assertiveness. We have to learn about this. And this time, everyone want to be assertive. But when we work with our elbows, etc., you have to know too much of assertiveness is as dynamite. There's a rule, never become angry. Not even with your mouth, because when you become angry, you will break yourself. You will break your own soul. I'm still teaching my students not to become angry, and not only from the outside. You can sit, for example, in your car during a traffic jam, and your face is poker face. You act if you don't care that other persons block your way while you have to go to a meeting. Of course, you feel agitated. Try to arrange something, but don't become angry. He who becomes angry breaks everything what he has built up. Are you still there? Yes, fortunately. There is a true story about someone who liked to hear himself talking, and he went on and on. And then a person came to him and said to him, "Here are the keys of the room. You will lock the door when you're finished." The laws of the universe. There is an instruction given to the whole mankind. Why do I give you this instruction, and what is the instruction? And how is the relation between the instruction where I am talking about and is given to whole mankind, and what is given at mankind in general? Of course, someone can pretend he knows the answer, but no one can say, "I know it. I have the instruction and others don't." I like to try to tell you something about this. Try to accept what you read or hear. Never there was and will be the intention to bring you to other thoughts. Keep your own opinion, but at the same time, don't struggle. Don't have any resistance in what you read or hear. I can say this to you because I never will try to convince you or lead you to whatever place. So take your chance. This book will have an enormous outcome on you, and you'll see in what way. Listen, everything consists of particular and in general. It is the same in every person. What is within the universe has also been given at mankind. And mankind has or was given only one instruction for all of mankind. Within, we see the function of everything, how the universe functions, how the human being functions. Clear for you? Every human being is a small world. Every being has everything in itself, and there is given only one instruction for all of mankind. Compare this with a fabric where they produce one kind of machinery. How many instructions will there be given for one machine? Only one, and not three or more. There can be several programs, but there is only one instruction. And it is the same with us. The human being here on earth, there is only one instruction. And I'm learning this day and night, and this is given to a small group of people in every generation. And I too belong to this small group. For us, it is an obligation to do this. Not that we are better, for heaven's sake, but we had and have to receive this. And they had, and we have to keep ourselves busy with this day and night. For the control system of the universe, you have to work day and night. Why? Because only this way you can attract the strength to yourself and to the whole world. It is an obligation one has to do. It took me many years and many travels before I came to this understanding, but it is given to all nations. From above is given to all nations a very precious thing. We call it in our world the cultural heritage, and this is given to everyone. Look, for example, to the Apaches, the Indians, and each group had received something, namely his own cultural heritage. It is given to the whole mankind, to every nation, and so every group is given a part, special for them. We see, for instance, the Christian heritage, the Tibetan heritage, etc. And inside Christianity, we see all kinds of varieties of Christian heritage. Everything has been given to every nation, but deep inside, in the deepest layer, we can find the general instruction given for whole mankind. Why isn't everyone a Christian, a Jew? Why isn't everyone Chinese? All strengths present in the universe are also in all nations. There is a kaleidoscope of strengths, but behind this there is one and only instruction, given and presentable for whole mankind. And I'm studying this instruction in the most secret books of Zohar and the Tree of Life. And now the time has come, the souls are ripe, and this is written too in the secret book of the Zohar, that after the year 2000, according to the Western calendar, for to use this instruction also by them who aren't a specialist in this area. The area of control system of the universe. It isn't the intention for me to convert any of you. Don't become as I am. It's not the case. For everyone, it is very important to stay and behold his own identity. We already have said there is the particular and the general. Each one of us has to stay true to his own root and keep his own identity. At the same time, adjust himself to the laws of the universe. This is what lives in every person, and this is what connects us with each other. Each cultural heritage is the outcome of the particular within the being, and at that same time, it is something that makes him different from other people. Isn't this great? But on a higher or deeper level, we see there is a part of a person that is connected with every other person. This is the instruction I'm learning and studying. Every minute is for this study. But the practical part, what is for everyone, for every person living here on earth, that is given to me by way of my great teacher who lived somewhere in the 1500s. And this is only revealed nowadays because people are ready for it. We may, will, and can use it in a proper way. So far, a few words why the time is ripe for Kabbalah. I only talk about the pure Lurian Kabbalah from the great teacher Ari HaKadosh. The holy Ari, he is the only person of my people who had the name holy behind his name. And everyone accepts this, that he is absolutely holy. He was 38 of age when he died, but he had said everything. He had also said that this method is for everyone. Every child from 9 years old may learn this nowadays. And not only children. It is open for every man and woman. He said this in the year 1550. Far before all the nonsense that have been told these days. And that one has to be 40 years of age. And you have to learn everything. And you have to do this and you have to do that. And you have to have children and wife or man, etc. And this is absolute nonsense. It is open in this time for everyone. I want to add, in every school, they should learn this. A Jewish school, a Christian school, because there is no connection with religion, because it is deeper than the deepest form of what personal cultural heritage may exist. Learn, beside your own cultural heritage, the Kabbalah. Look to the letters. The eternal light is behind the letters. That's why our students learn with the Hebrew letters. But now we go back to the main subject. Try to concentrate, because I'm going to tell you something you will find nowhere, and there is not one word for myself. I don't know anything. But what I'm going to tell you, it is the Savior of your soul, from the whole mankind, from everything. And the time is ripe for you to hear. Even you know nothing about Kabbalah, and it is not important if you are a believer or not. Every nation has its own cultural heritage, and during the history there were developed all kinds of methods, philosophies, but also a normal method for the spiritual, the function of the human being. In America, for instance, there was the great Dale Carnegie. During the 40s, he had constructed a whole social, cultural training method, how to believe with each other, or how to behave with each other. People were very enthusiastic to be positive and to train yourself to be assertive, etc. Of course, everything was needed. All trainings you receive from your employer for how to become more effective in your work. Remember very carefully, I want to add to you something special, and this is for everyone. All cultural heritages that are given to mankind are all structured according to the strengths that are in us from above to the waist. But beyond the waist, it stopped. Every cultural heritage says, don't come there. There is the devil. But both are part of the creating strengths within a person. It is given to us, so therefore we have to use it. But people weren't ripe, weren't ready. Beneath the waist, 98% of the creative strengths are there. And we use them as rough energy. Beneath the waist is the place, it is our base, and inside we can find the sexual strength. Of course, we don't talk about sexuality. It has nothing to do with sex. But from within, these strengths are similar with the strengths of the universe. But in such a deep level, not physical, of course, but deep within. And the entrance is given to no one. No one can come there and bring some structure. Now we return to the changes where I was speaking about earlier. What is the whole development of the human being and the individual? It was necessarily to go forwards, further, the mammoth being to refine the same energies and to use them in a way. Who was the mammoth being? That was he who hunted and afterwards returned to his own cave or cavern, and when he had eaten, he was drunk, he took his wife. Why I'm telling you this? So all of you will understand, feel how rude it was. Look, for example, at a farmer. We don't talk about persons, not about the farmer walking here on earth. Although there is similarity with the mammoth being, first his cattle, his cows, and then back to his wife, and this is not what I mean, but in strength it is given to every person. Each one of us has this strength beneath his waist, and there we find the most strength, the qualities of strength refined. Did I make myself clear? You have to open a box very carefully. It is not the intention to break open the box for to enter. It isn't necessarily to treat a woman in a rude way for to conquer her heart. I think you will understand what I mean. What I'm saying is this: every person has to use the creative strength that is beneath his waist, and this is especially for this time. In earlier days, it wasn't so clear. So why is it so important these days? The reality is an expander. An expander is a thing of metal feathers, and you can pull them with your hands away from each other. In the reality of the earliest days, it was easy for the mammoth being to pull them away from each other. But the more we have come in this time, it became harder to expand the expander. We can't avoid it anymore. There's no escape from the strength beneath our waist possible. We have to use them, not abuse them, but use them. Not only use them in a rough way, by eating only fish and chips, taking a movie and weekend is over, and then when it's Monday to rise up and go to work, and before the day is over, you need a psychiatrist or a social worker. What is left from the creative strengths? Nothing. Did I make myself clear? When you live in this way, life becomes a daily grind, and the solution is not to turn from it. This behavior is very human, but it is all about how do you do some things. There has to be a certain attitude from the inside. The human being is made to make changes. And in the West, it wasn't fully understood. It was the time of the strongest. He had to survive, but how life is completely different. It is given to me to reveal this to you and to the whole nation. I tell it my students, but outside the study room, there is more. I have to go outside and tell it to you, the reader of this book. When we come to understanding of the instruction, we will also come to the understanding of the mechanism of every social, biological, economic phenomenon. For example, the changes in our climate these days. There isn't a word for myself. The wisdom isn't mine. I have spent thousands of nights with my so deep desire to find the answers on my questions, and I found them in the most secret books that were given to mankind. And that is where I'm speaking from. That is what I'm passing on to you. Let me give you an example. For instance, suicide. This becomes more and more a great problem here in the Netherlands. You can read in the Trimbo's report how big this problem is in the Netherlands. And of course, the people in The Hague are busy to develop something, but it won't help. Why not? They aren't familiar with the mechanism. They don't know how it works. We don't have to envy them. It's a hard work, but I would like to pass on the mechanism, and it would be of great help. And they were prepared to listen so they could develop a good policy. And it would be of great help, for instance, the scientists, if they should use this mechanism in their branch too. The kind of information I will convert in all other subjects in my book over and over again. Recently we saw in the Netherlands a taboo for the first time, namely sex with animals. It was a taboo as it is for all the strengths beneath the waist. Didn't it exist in earlier days? Of course, it has been there all the time. But this was the first time people discussed about it. The relation with animals, and that they will be hurt too. And there is a porno with animals. So we see an enormous problem, and this isn't the only one. Does any one of you know how to handle this? No one knows. And this is absolutely not a new phenomenon. How to deal with it? Why? What is the reason for this? By way of the instruction, I could give you some clarification about how the mechanism works. Then the politicians could make a good policy, and it will help. Then we can make a real living. Netherlands. Not me, but the time is ripe for to construct a society that may become a living mechanism, just as the human soul is a living mechanism. There is no other way for to socialize with each other than to learn how to love each other. And that is something special, because we don't know what it is to love each other. We have to learn this, otherwise you will not become a whole person. When there is no love inside of you for another being, a human being, an animal, a plant, a stone, it is not only the matter of being nice and friendly. We say be tolerant, and this is great. We can learn a lot about this. To gain the best of yourself. It isn't easy to be successful. First, you have to let go all of the resistance you feel while you're reading this book. Don't struggle, even if you read about things that make you cry, because inside of you there's a part so full of confidence, and now I'm breaking this confidence because now you can grow. Endure it, because it is all about you. And the next step is you will receive light that you didn't experience before. Yourself will break your ego. No one else will break your ego. When you go outside your ego, you will go with you. But there is an extra. The primary light will penetrate you and will help you in every situation. I will bring you salvation, and in every situation it will bring you to life. So how will you know this book is good for you, that this book will help you to come in contact with the root of your soul, with the goal of existence? From your inner, you must have a wish, a deep longing wish. It is all about need. When you have the feeling, I'm okay, maybe I can be a little bit better, but as a whole, I'm satisfied with myself. You feel life is good for you, then there is no feeling of shortness. When there isn't the longing for improvement, this book will not help you. But when you're honest to yourself and you will see there is shortness, the book will help. And please, it isn't disgraceful. Never feel ashamed if you see your shortness. And don't be shy to say, yes, I am aware of my absolute impotency to give. Not the giving you had learned from your parents or at school, but we're talking about the true giving. There has to be a desire so great, so deep, that you can say, I give everything to learn about the true giving, because in this moment I can't give. And to be aware of this is already an enormous correction. Then you're already walking the way that leads to your own fulfillment. And all of us are along this way. When there is the feeling of some shortness, and you see this clearly, and you want to build up to experience more light, this book is for you. Don't think I want to promote this book so you will start to read. That is something from our society. In the society, one goes to a doctor, a psychiatrist, or who he may be, and you pay, and he will sweeten your problems because you're the customer. But here in the Kabbalah, it is quite different. Think about this. There were students who find the first year terrible. Why? Because they saw more and more of their shortness. Not from me, but it is the Kabbalah himself that shows the shortness in a person, because when there is no experience of your own shortness, there will be no light. There will be no progression. Where can you receive the light, the satisfaction? How is this possible when you feel yourself great and satisfied with yourself? Of course, on the one hand, there has to be some dissatisfaction in what you have, but it is necessarily to be thirsty, hungry to experience shortness. What kind of shortness? Never compare yourself with your neighbor. I have only a second-hand car, and my neighbor has a new Mercedes or something like that. Never compare your life with the life of your neighbor. If you have to come in a tete-a-tete relation with light, with wholeness, that is the only contact you have to have from the inside of you. And then you will feel, of course, shortness, and there is still imperfection. So this is the most important thing, and not sitting in the lotus posture and feel how great you are. In contrary, every day you feel the misery grow. I have to speak to you in a direct way. When you start working with this book, there is the chance you will feel horrible, because you will feel, or you will see yourself, and you will come to understanding there's only the egoistic receiving, the receiving for oneself. And this attitude, you can't come to improvement. And when there is this attitude, you're standing yourself in the way. And by this attitude of I want, and you can't give up this attitude, I can't help you. Then this book and no one can help you. Of course, it is normal that you have some trouble with the idea. You have shortness. In other words, there is some evil within you. But as it is said before, there are two strengths in every person and in the universe. You can find them in you From your head to your waist, these are the strengths we name the good inclination. Here we see the structures of all the cultural heritage of a human being. And from the waist to below, we see the bad inclination of a person, and we have to learn to deal with both of them. How? No one knows the answer. It is only given in the one and only instruction. How can I receive the light from there? Your parents, your teacher, and the cultural upbringing, they told you. Never touch that area, because there is the devil. So how can you work this out? From below, the point where the bad inclination is, it is forbidden to attract the light in a simple way. You have to know that from your waist to below, there are the most of your strengths, your creative strengths, and these strengths give you life. And you have to learn a very specific way to bring up these strengths. And when you have come above the waist, the place where the good inclination is, the good in you, there is the place for correction. Besides these two strengths, the left and right, we also see the middle line. By way of this middle line, you bring it back to below. In other words, your upper part is light, and the part below under this waist is the area of darkness. And both are constructive, both are structurally necessary, and both are created. There has only been the creation of the light and of the darkness. The good and the evil are created. While the cultural upbringing says no, the evil, of course, he who is a child has to speak in this way. But when a person has become grown up, a real adult, he has to connect these two lines with each other. Both have to serve the good. That isn't easy. In a way, this is all what matters. My students are now learning for 3 or 4 years now in my school. It's not that they're enthusiastic, because enthusiasm is quite different. You can't talk about enthusiasm when you're working on and with yourself. It's all about awareness of your own good and bad sides, and that there isn't an escape in the wishful thinking. It is absolutely wrong to say, for example, in the afterlife I will receive it, but not here on earth, because man is made for doing the work here on earth and not in the afterlife. You can't buy yourself off for the afterlife. Don't think it is possible to buy off a sex scandal. You can't buy anything off. Do I make myself clear? And neither your cultural upbringing can do this, neither with money or whatever. It is all about your personal work on yourself. Become conscious about this. Therefore, working in this book may seem to you horrible, but it is my obligation. Talk about this right away, so there will be no grudge afterwards. In the last 6 or 7 years, now and then I give lessons at celebrities' homes, or by way of internet. You can see this as personal guidance. Why do I do this? Because celebrities are the one who can't go anywhere. They can't go to an ordinary place just around the corner. You can see often on television our famous people in politics, of course, they want to keep themselves low. They don't want to show their feelings to others. When you see a person on television, he may look self-confident if he knows everything, but for him it is very hard to ask for help because he is full of shame. This is because in the Netherlands, not in America, there you are someone who, when you learn Kabbalah in Hollywood, for example, it gives you some status, and that's also the reason you can't find such a book as this. Many of the books you can buy all over the world are only there to make you feel good, and this is not what you find in this book, because should I do so, the most secret books would be closed for me. I would pay with my life probably. So here is no time for comedy, not for money, not for celebrities, etc. Everyone has to make his own choice. One day, a celebrity came to me. He is the reason why I'm telling you this, telling this to you. It was very hard for him to make himself small. He is in the show business and very famous in the Netherlands and over the entire world. And I had to make myself so small because if I shouldn't do that, it would be impossible for him to go forwards. He was so full of himself, although there was a longing in him to make himself small. He couldn't do it. Can you imagine? Such a self-confident man, and then one day after, let's say, 60 sessions, tears come in his eyes. He told me in his whole life he hadn't cried over anything. He was a fighter and a winner, but only, of course, in the material, and now he wanted to have a real life. He said, now I feel life in me. Nobody did succeed, neither did I, but when he was with me, and because I made myself so small in the sense of helping him, not the I, but in a way I can make myself transparent. And while I was speaking with him, I took over all his pain in an intuitive way and brought them up high. From the outside, you can't see anything, but from the inside, I brought it up high. And then the strength will come down for him, not for me, but I will profit too. When I make myself small, and when the other is very proud, he can't communicate with me. And when he adjusts himself, something will break deep within him. It is if suddenly the real person comes forward, if his real personality steps out. And this was new for him. He went to the mirror and touched himself. Is this me? It happens. It is beautiful to see, whereby even prominent people, celebrities, become human in harmony with themselves. It sounds great, but you have to know you need a lot of effort. You have to know that all your bombast, once there is to identify yourself, to build up some structures in yourself. And now you're going to learn to break them down. Of course, nothing disappears, but you will come deeper and deeper within your own structure. And without following me, but you start to know who you are. You are going to learn about your own true inner self. Within you lies a great adventure. And when we say within, we also mean from the outside. Only then you will see your needs. You can't avoid it. And when you want to structure your life, you have to start this adventure. And within this, you will come to a real understanding of yourself and of other people. At the end, you will come to the understanding that all the work is to overcome your own nature, your earthly nature, and to come to the true being, your inner being. Experience all what you have read. Feel the bravery in yourself, and it starts to help you. And now, start the work.